Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, a few different styles, but I think it's fair to say that this brewery are one of the best known American craft breweries over here in Europe. They were certainly one of the first ones that I encountered. But it's been over 2 years, I think, since I last reviewed something from them. And the main reason for that is that we just kept getting the same beers over and over, actually, which was a bit of a shame. But the one that we're going to have a look at today is one that I haven't tried before. And this beer was brewed for something of a special occasion, actually. So I'm very curious to see what this one is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to Colorado in the Midwest, a very beautiful state, and I've been there when I was very young, so I don't remember it that well, but I do remember it being very, very pretty. We're going to go to Longmont, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Oskar Blues Brewery. So this particular beer is called Double Dales. It comes in at 9% ABV. It's an Imperial IPA. I think this one's going to be more of a kind of West Coast type IPA actually, but this beer was brewed to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Dale's Pale Ale, which is one of my American favourites actually. So when I saw this one coming through Systembolaget in Sweden, I thought, I have to have a go at this one, but it was released as part of the Tillfällig temporary assortment in very early March. So yeah, let's crack on with this one and see how we go. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Oskar Blues Brewery before, and hopefully we can add some more different beers to that list in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you happen to be interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. But as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Oskar Blues Brewery once again then. So, Oskar Blues Brewery was founded as a restaurant by Dick Dale Katakis in Lyons, Colorado back in 1997. So 2 years later they began brewing beer in the basement, and this is where it all started. So the brewery are credited as having been the first craft brewery in the USA to can their beer with the release of their flagship Dale's Pale Ale back in 2002. Over the following years the brewery grew quite substantially. They experimented and they produced lots and lots of different beers, but by 2011 many other breweries had followed suit and were starting to can their beers as well. But in 2009 the brewery had founded the Burning Can event, which brought together all the different craft breweries who canned their beers, and now these guys are the largest brewery by volume in the US to do so, and they're also the second largest brewery in Colorado. I believe it's New Belgium who are the biggest by volume craft brewery in Colorado. But in 2013, they expanded and they opened a satellite brewery in Brevard in North Carolina, which can brew between 40,000 and 85,000 barrels of beer, and this has since been expanded. The original Oskar Blues Bar and Grill is still open in Lyons, and it has 45 tap beers, and they now have a brewery in Austin in Texas as well, and they're producing around 150,000 US barrels of beer per year, which is roughly 175,000 hectolitres of beer per year. So that's going to be what, about, is that, we times it by 100, that's going to be 17.5 million litres of beer per year. That is pretty damn impressive actually. But since 2015, Oskar Blues Brewery has been part of Canarchy, which is an umbrella company which composes Oskar Blues, Cigar City, Squatters, Wasatch, Deep Ellum, and also Perrin Brewing. And they've also got another company in there that I believe does like seltzers and soft drinks and stuff like that too. But as of March 2022, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 960 different kinds of beer, and they have a whole variety of different styles actually. One of the beers that I really want to try from these guys is Old Chub, the Scotch ale. I love trying Scotch ales from different parts of the world, you know, and I'm biased being Scottish, of course. But yeah, Old Chub is one that's been on my list for quite some time actually, but I really want to go to Lyons in Colorado and actually visit the Oskar Blues Bar and Grill. I think that would be a really nice kind of out and about video to film. So that's something that I do plan on doing at some stage in the future. But yeah, that is all I can tell you about Oskar Blues Brewery for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's crack on then and have a little look at this beer itself. I have to say I'm very curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. So just to let you have a little look at the artwork of this one before we open up. As you can see, it is a little bit of a kind of rescheme of the original Dale's Paleo artwork, which is very cool. There you can see on the back the nice roundel as well. But this beer was actually quite cheap. I think this one cost me about 40 Swedish kroner, so that is roughly €4, so about £3.50 sterling, something like that. So that's going to translate roughly to what's it going to be? That's going to be about $5 American for the can. So yeah, when you consider this as an import beer and it's 9%, that's not bad, to be honest with you. And in America, of course, I think the 330, or this will be a 375 milliliter, actually 355. Yeah, it's a 355 milliliter one, or 12 fluid ounces as the Americans like to call it. These sort of cans in the States I think are sold in 6-packs, but yeah, quite often in America you can only really buy beer in 4-packs, which was something I always found annoying when I was a tourist there. I wanted 4 different beers, not 4 of the same, that I could take away and review actually. But yeah, as we say, 355 milliliter can, this one at 9%. American double IPA. The hops in this one are Eldorado and Talus. We know these hops quite well. Eldorado I think comes in about 12% alpha acid. It's got quite a big kind of passion fruity, mangoey and slightly pineapple-y sort of vibe to it. And Talus is quite an interesting one. That one has a little bit of, it still has a wee bit of the coconutty sort of thing you get from Sabro. It's derived from Sabro, of course, but it's got quite a bright pink grapefruity sort of thing to it. And as we mentioned earlier, this particular beer was brewed to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Dale's Paleo. So yeah, this should be quite interesting. It's imported here to Sweden by great brands who import a lot of American craft beers. But let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. 9%. Should be nice. Curious to see exactly what type of IPA this one is going to be, and you can get some really nice notes. Yeah, you get some really nice notes just as you open up the can there. But yeah, when they're calling it an American IPA, I suspect it's going to be a little bit more like a West Coasty one. And if it's brewed as a kind of ode, if you like, a tribute to Dale's Paleo, yeah, it's probably going to be more West Coasty. And this will be quite interesting as well. Like, Talus is one of the newer hops on the market, so to try it in a more West Coasty malt base should be quite interesting. There's a lot of new hops out there that I've only really had in New England IPAs and not so much in the more West Coasty ones. But yeah, we'll crack on and see how we go. So as you can see, this is poured really nicely. Before the head disappears, you can see that this beer has poured with about it's poured with about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say slightly off-white head. You can see it's got a nice mix of very small bubbles at the bottom there and some bigger bubbles toward the top. There are one or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass. There's a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But I mean, overall, it looks very, very nice. Yeah, in terms of colour, I think it's fair to say that this one is a very kind of deep yellow. It's not really ambery. I'm not sure how well you're going to see that on the camera in this light because I'm filming in the evening at the moment. You see the beer's a little bit lighter if I film them during the day, but yeah, this one's got a nice kind of deep yellow colour to it, and you can see it's got a little bit more of that kind of natural haze sort of thing to it. But I do wonder, I think this beer probably has been filtered actually just by the look of it. But yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on one, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar is caramelized, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But when it comes to, you know, these kind of IPAs, usually it's about a 90-minute wort boil. But any barrel aging that you do or any adjuncts that you put in can affect the colour of the beer as well. But yeah, this one is pretty standard for a kind of West Coasty type IPA. They're calling it an American IPA, and these days the American IPA tends to, in my experience, more modern breweries, these guys are one of the more kind of old boys, if you like, I guess we could say, but in the more modern breweries, when they call something an American IPA, it tends to be somewhere between the kind of hazy, wheaty, oaty New England side of things and the kind of biscuity, caramelly West Coast. But yeah, this looks like a good old school American kind of West Coast IPA. Some people have argued that Colorado IPAs are a separate style, of course. But yeah, the Colorado IPAs, in my experience, were always a bit more kind of West Coasty and things like that. But yeah, I need to explore. I'd love to go and live in Colorado for a year and just explore all the different breweries there. It's one of the best beer states over in America, actually. And back in the day, of course, it was all about the beer that we were getting from America was all, there was it was all from California and it was all from Colorado. You had wee smatterings of, like, you know, Oregon, Washington, and Michigan and stuff like this. But yeah, Colorado is one of the big beer states, one of the well-established ones. But in terms of what you'd expect from a kind of West Coasty type IPA, there's nothing surprising about the appearance of this one. Yeah, you can see the head's gone away to just leave you a nice kind of thinner foamy layer now. But let's have a look at the aroma and see how we go with this beer. It does smell really nice from the little whiffs I've had so far. But let's look at it more closely. Oh yeah, this beer's in good condition as well, and that's one of the things you always have to care about when it comes to the American beers in Systembolaget. You need to be careful of the condition if it's like an IPA or one of the more hoppy styles of beer, should we say. But I will say this beer smells very, very nice. Lovely big oily fruity character to it. The green component isn't too pungent in this one, I have to say. But then you've got a nice kind of malt base to it as well, that you can smell the kind of sweetness of the malt base. So let's go through this and break it down for you then. So in terms of the the malty backbone then, it's kind of what you'd expect. I mean, you smell a little bit of bread crust in it. You can smell a little mix of a kind of white, a little bit of a mix of a kind of white bready, brown bready sort of thing. So a few different things going on there. I do get a little bit of a kind of crackery note out of this as well, like a sort of Jacob's cream cracker. I'm not sure how relevant that reference is going to be to those of you watching in the States, but yeah, it has got a little bit of that cream crackery type note for me. So yeah, a little bit of bread crust, a bit of a mix of a kind of white bready, brown bready sort of thing, and then also a little bit of a Jacob's cream cracker type note on top of that. But yeah, there's certainly a fair little bit of sweetness to the malt base here as well. For me, this one has a little bit of that kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing to it. So a little bit, for Americans, I guess we would have to say it's a little bit more of a cookie sort of thing, because of course biscuits to Americans are those little kind of scone type things. But yeah, as I've always said, for me, there's two different directions you can take a West Coast IPA. Either it can be a little bit more kind of bready and biscuity, or it can be a little bit more kind of oily and caramelly. For me, the oily caramelly pinnacle beer would be the likes of the Sierra Nevada Torpedo, whereas, you know, the Russian River Pliny the Elder is the one that has the more kind of biscuity side to it. This one reminds me a little bit more of that kind of Pliny the Elder type beer, actually. It's got that more biscuity vibe to it. But that said, you do actually get a fair little bit of sweet caramel out of this one, so I'm curious to see how that carries into the taste. But yeah, definitely mix of McVitie's digestive biscuit and oily caramel in this one, but I think it leans toward that more biscuity side of things. But in terms of what you'd expect from a sort of more West Coasty American IPA, this one it's giving you everything you'd expect, to be honest with you, on the malty side of things. So yeah, quite happy with that. Let's focus on the hoppy part of the aroma. So for me, green component, this is quite interesting. Now, it's not overly pungent, this one, so I'm curious to see what this beer is going to be like in terms of bitterness, because we have to remember that these days a lot of the new generation of craft beer drinkers got into craft beer drinking the New England IPAs, and they are obviously a lot less bitter than the old school West Coast IPAs were back in, you know, the 2010 and things like this when I was getting into beer. So the pungency of the green component, I think, indicates this isn't going to be quite as bitter as we were used to back in the day. So remember, West Coast IPAs have a good bit of early edition hopping, late edition hopping, and dry hopping. So early edition hopping is the one that gives you the bitterness, and if there's a lot of early edition hopping, your green component tends to be quite pungent in the aroma and in the flavour. Late edition hopping gives you a little bit of bitterness, but also quite a bit of, it gives you a lot more contribution to the flavour and aroma. And then dry hopping is all about the flavour and aroma. So West Coast IPAs have all three, New England IPAs tend to have the latter two, the late edition and the dry hopping. Sometimes a wee bit of early edition hopping, but not a lot. So for me, the green component in this one isn't too pungent. There's a wee bit of earthiness in there. You can smell a little bit of quite a bright floral character, I would say, bright but oily. I get a little bit of grassiness off it and a wee touch of zestiness too. But again, it's not all that much, I would say. It's not madly big on its, it's not madly big in its kind of carrot. It's not madly big in its green component, that's in terms of the pungency. But yeah, the fruity side of this beer is quite interesting though, so let's focus on that. The fruity character for me is overwhelmingly oily, so I really like that about this beer. Yeah, the fruity character is overwhelmingly oily. I'm certainly getting a mix of both of these hops as well, so you can smell that really, for me, the big bright grapefruit that you get from the talus is really coming through. It almost gives the impression of a little bit of melon in there as well, so you've got that big bright pink grapefruit in there. You get a wee bit of melon underneath that, but I also get like a kind of more ordinary passion fruit from the, which will be from the El Dorado as well. There's a wee bit of a kind of oily mango in there, and quite a bit of a like an apricot-y, like a dry apricot-y character for me too. I get a bit of lighter pineapple as well, in fairness, and maybe just like a wee hint of a kind of limey sort of thing. If I was smelling this blind, I would actually think there was a bit of cashmere in this, because of that melony, limey character that the beer has. I'm not sure how popular a hop cashmere is in the US right enough, but yeah, you get a lot of that kind of big, bright pink grapefruit off of this one. You can smell a wee bit of that kind of coconutty character that talus can give you as well. So yeah, bright pink grapefruit, little bit of coconut, wee bit of a melony character for me. Then yeah, a juicy mango, a wee bit of a dry apricot and things like that. But yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really nice. It's quite an interesting aroma that you get out of this. So yeah, as I always say, take a wee bit of time to just ponder over the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it's about time that we have a taste of this one. So yeah, this one is the Double Dales, a 9% Imperial IPA, West Coast IPA I think it's going to be, from Oskar Blues Brewery, one of the first American craft brewers I came into contact with, and the first to can their beer as well, from Lyons in Colorado over in the American Midwest. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers, and happy 20th anniversary to Dale's Pale Ale, one of my American favourites. Slàinte. Yeah. Pretty solid actually. It is quite old school, but I will say it is as I suspected it was going to be. This is one of these kind of more, it's got everything, the malt base and everything is the same, but the hopping, the approach to the hopping in this is definitely a bit more akin to what you would expect from a kind of modern West Coast IPA. So yeah, it's not got the big old school bitterness that you're going to get, that you would have got back in the day from the old school West Coast IPAs, but it's still got that same vibe about the malt base and the fruits and everything like that. But yeah, this is a nice beer, solid enough. So well done to well done to Oskar Blues for this. Let's take a bigger gulp of that now. That's just first impressions. So yeah, I think this is pretty nice actually. It's got a good balance between it actually. It's got a good little bit of sweetness, the big oily fruity characters, and then the nice bright floral note. I would say it's a lot more floral actually in its flavour than in its green component. The aroma was given away, but yeah, I like this one. I wouldn't hesitate to drink that again actually. it does give you a little bit of that booziness as well that you want when it's a big 9%er. So yeah, this is worth trying. This is definitely worth trying, especially if, like me, you're a fan of the Dale's Pale Ale. But let's break the flavour of this one down for you and describe it as we always do. So let's go for it. So the middle third of the palate with this one, you can feel there, in the middle part of the palate. Then the base is, as I was saying, you've got a little bit of that bread crusty character there. There's one or two little kind of crackery. Yeah, there's one or two little kind of crackery elements to it, which is quite nice. That Jacob's cream crackery sort of thing. So yeah, bread crust, crackery note. On top of that, there's a wee bit of a kind of more brown bready character as well. I do find the bready character in this one really is more kind of brown wholemeal type bread, so that's quite interesting. Maybe on top of that you get a little bit of the white bread, but yeah, the backbone of this beer is bread crust, cracker, brown bread, white bread. That really comes out, and I feel that lingers there into the aftertaste. You do have that element of kind of bready graininess coming out of the beer, but it works. It really does work. But yeah, on top of the bready notes, then you've got that nice kind of McVitie's. You've got that nice sort of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing, which I think is great. And then, so yeah, you've got that nice kind of big circle. You've got that nice kind of big circle in the middle of your palate there, and you can feel that the base of it is really like McVitie's digestive biscuit. But then as you move more into the centre, you feel there's that more concentrated big circle there, where you've got the big oily sweet caramel component coming out of the beer. So I do really like how that goes together in this one. Yeah. So yeah, you've got a big oily sweet caramelly note in the middle of the beer, and it actually does carry a little bit of booziness to it, which I quite like. So yeah, you've got a little bit of that boozy character in there. As you move out from that, it sweetens up slightly, and then of course you start to get the McVitie's digestive biscuity qualities as you move out towards the extremities of that middle third of your palate. So yeah, it's quite nice, this one. It does actually balance itself quite well between the more kind of biscuity side and the more oily side of the West Coast IPA spectrum, but again, it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah. But yeah, on the I don't think we need to say anything else about the kind of middle third of the palate then. So let's focus on the back third of the palate. So border region between middle third and back third of your palate, again, you get a nice little bit. You get a nice little bit of that kind of bready build up in there, which is good. So yeah, a little bit of bready build up there, a little bit of bread crust. Then the base of that back third of the palate is a wee bit more. The base of that back third of the palate is a wee bit more sort of bread crusty and things as well. You do get a little bit more of that grainy character. As I've said before, on the back third of the palate, you tend to get the more kind of grainy, bitter flavours out of the beer a wee bit more. So yeah, the rule is the further forward on the palate you go, the sweeter the flavours get. But yeah, the base of that back third of the palate has got a wee bit of a more kind of grainy, bread crusty sort of thing. On top of that, there's a wee bit of a kind of brown, brown bready, wholemeal bready sort of thing. And then on top of that, you've got a little bit more of on top of that, you've got a little bit more kind of how would you say? You can feel that the brown bready layer is a little bit thicker in fairness, but then on top of all of that, so you've got bread crust, kind of brown bready layer, then you start to get the yeastiness out of the beer, and the yeasty character in this one's quite interesting. So yeah, on the yeasty side of the beer, it actually feels like a little bit more of a kind of dense, slightly doughy brown bready sort of thing. You've got a wee bit of that grainy bread crust on the outside of it. So yeah, the yeasty character there just sits on top of everything on that back third of the palate. And yeah, you get more of that, I think, the further you go into the beer as well, which I do enjoy. But yeah, the back, pardon me, the back third of your palate, this one, the flavour's definitely a little bit taller, but then as you move further forward, it just condenses, the flavour just condenses down a little bit and squashes together a bit more the further forward you go, so you can feel that. I think that covers everything we need to say about the malty and yeasty component of the beer. Let's focus on the hoppy side of things then. So the more that I've drank of this beer, I think there is a wee bit more. I think there has been a little bit more. How would we say? There has been a little bit more early edition hopping to this one than I first suspected. So keep that in mind. But yeah, back corners of the palate then, there is a little bit of that kind of earthy character. You do get a little bit of that, but as you move further forward, you get a little bit of a kind of piney resinous sort of thing at this one. You can feel that base there, but as you reach the front corners of the palate, it has got a little bit of a, it certainly has got a little bit of a kind of bright floral aromatic quality to it. So keep that in mind with this one. So yeah, fruity side of this beer really is nice. So yeah, big kind of bright floral aromaticity then round the front curve of the palate. It's a little bit lighter and more grassy as well. So yeah, I really enjoy that one. That is pretty nice. Yeah, it's pretty good. It is pretty good. Yeah, I like that about this beer. The green component for me is quite nice, and that is, again, it's quite reminiscent of the more old school West Coast IPAs as well. But let's focus on the fruity component of the beer. So, pardon me, border region between front third and middle third of your palate. You do get a little bit of a bready build up there, and then you can feel the base of that front third of your palate is a little bit more kind of smooth and brown bready. So, yeah, keep that in mind. But yeah, on top of that, yeah, you have that nice oily fruity character. So towards the back of that front third of the palate, yeah, you get that quite pungent pink grape, but still quite bright pink grapefruity thing from the talus. Now, the aroma that I was picking up on the fruity side of things is quite different to what you actually pick up in the flavour in this beer, in my opinion. So you get that big, bright pink grapefruity sort of thing, but as you move further forward from that, you start to get a kind of more regular passion fruit from the El Dorado, and then you start to get I get a bit of an oily, mango-y note to this. And this beer is really interesting because, as I've always explained, the fruity characters that you get from hops, and generally speaking, hops will behave differently depending on what yeast and malt and stuff you put with them. They can be really, really different. So in this one, you can see the El Dorado is showing its more oily side compared to the juicier side we've been used to in recent times from the New England IPAs. But anyway, yeah, so bright pink grapefruity character in there. You get the more regular passion fruit after that, then an oily mango. But as you move into the middle of that front third of the palate, there's a wee bit of apricot in there, that lighter apricot-y character. Yeah, you have that lighter apricot-y sort of thing. And then, yeah, so a little bit of a lighter apricot-y quality. And as you go, yeah, as you move further forward, you start into the front half of the palate, you start to get a lighter kind of pineapple-y note to this one as well. That melony note that I was picking up from the beer a bit earlier on, I don't get so much of actually. So yeah, the way that goes together in this one is quite nice as well. So yeah, and I think the fruit actually does get a bit brighter. I do get a wee bit of lime just behind the kind of front tip of the tongue, the further that I go into the aftertaste with this beer as well. So yeah, the fruity side of this one is quite nice actually. Really rings true. So yeah, quite a nice. It still and the thing is, it still maintains. It has a bit of a paleo, the old Dale's paleo vibe to it. In fairness, but you can taste, it is a big boozy sort of West Coast double IPA, and stylistically, yeah, it definitely is a West Coast beer, this one. So yeah, keep that in mind. But yeah, big thumbs up to Oskar Blues from me for this beer. I do like this one. But yeah, pardon me, let's round off this review with a look at the mouthfeel. I think overall this beer is definitely pushing towards the top end and mid-bodied. Yeah, carbonation is very smooth. Smooth carbonation. It's got a nice kind of light and oily mouthfeel to it for sure. It has got that kind of, it does have that, yeah, it really does have that sort of clean mouthfeel that you expect, you know, the Colorado water and the mountains and all this kind of thing. Reminds me a little bit of Scandinavia in a sense. So yeah, you've got a lot of that going on in this one. On the hoppy side of things, as we say, in terms of IBUs, I think this beer is maybe about 60. I don't think it's quite as bitter, some of the ones that we've come across before, but the bitterness has grown in this beer, I think, the more that I've drunk of it. So I think about 30 IBU, no, about 50, yeah, maybe about 60 IBUs. The malt base, as we said, bit of graininess underneath, a wee bit of a kind of smoother, more oily type character to it as well. Then you've got that nice kind of juicy, oily, fruity note too. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together, I think, is really nice. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for. I do think we can leave it at that for this review. Yeah, I really enjoy this, and very nice to return to Oskar Blues after what feels like a good little while. I really hope that I can get to Lyons and visit my friend Tabor, and we can go and film some Oskar Blues stuff together. That would be very, very cool, actually. But yeah, let's leave it there. So, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Oskar Blues as well. I really hope that I can review Old Chub from these guys at some stage. That would be awesome. But yeah, this one has been the Double Dales, a 9% Imperial IPA, like an old school West Coast IPA. And yeah, this is definitely worth checking out in my opinion. A beer brewed to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the classic Dales Pale Ale. But thank you again for watching. Check out my social media, check out Oskar Blues social media, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Slàinte, skål, and cheers.